Hello everyone and welcome to Eduonix's course on Microsoft Excel. In this section we'll be covering some text functions and some security features in Excel. So let's get started with the text functions. What I have here is a copy paste from the internet of the protein intake by different countries in the world, in Europe and to be specific, and the different foods that these things are consumed with. As you can see, if you go to column C and look up here in this box, there's nothing in that box. There's nothing in the D column, E, or any of these columns, and everything is in the A column, as you can see up here. So we obviously want to separate these out into different cells. We can't use it in Excel in this form, right? So what has happened here is that Excel has copied and treated this as text, where we wanted to treat it properly like data that is numeric, and some of it is also alphabetic. So what we want to do is get this to go from the text to different columns. So in order to do that, we select the data that we want. And remember, column A contains all of the data. To convince yourself of that fact, you can expand column A to cover the whole thing. See, all of these things are still in column A, and column B, C, D, and E are way over here. So now we want all of this to be separated out into different columns. So we can select it, and in the data tab, there is the function text to columns. That's what we want here. So you can do fixed width, where it will let you separate your text into columns based on particular number of characters. But that's not what we want, because we have variable length text, because sometimes you only have 2 digits, 8.9, sometimes you have 3, 42.3 for example, and the lengths of the names of the countries are all different. So we can't use fixed width in this case. We have to use delimited. So let's hit next, and over here you can see different ways you can do. So you can delimit this by different characters. So this, without selecting anything, this is basically our data that is all in one cell. And we want to separate it by a space, because every time there's a space, it's safe to say that we want that to be in a different column. Except for maybe over here where it says W Germany, this might cause us a problem. So let's see what happens. We use space, we've hit next, and then it asks us where we want the data to end up, the destination, and we can leave it as A1 or whatever column we started with, and it will put the first column in that particular cell in A1, as you'll see. And we hit finish, and it has separated out into all the different columns. And as you can see with West Germany down here, though, the problem has become that the West and Germany has appeared under red meat, and 3.8 is way outside the fruit and vegetable column. So we want to fix that. So one way to do that would be to undo it, and with West Germany we can just put an underscore between W and Germany, and then do the whole thing over again. And if you go to text to columns, delimited, and you want it to be delimited based on the spaces, so we hit N next. We want it to be in here. The column format is just general, but we could also have format of date, and then we can just hit finish. And so now we can hit finish, and it's separated out, and this time West Germany has been treated properly, and they're all really nicely in different columns. And this is really handy when you want to get some data off the internet, or a text document or a Word file, and post it into Excel. You just separate out into columns very, very easily if it's all in one big column. But just for the fun of it, let's see if we can go back to the original format that we had it in, everything being in one column from this. And this is useful a lot of times when you want to combine, say, first names and last names that are in two different columns into the same column. So let's just see how that is done. So in order to do that, we use a function called concatenate. So let's type that in, concatenate. And then we select all of the text that we want. So let's start with country up here. Red meat, white meat, eggs, milk, fish, cereals, starch, nuts, and fruit and vegetables. And we hit enter. And it's combined them into one big string with no spaces, because we didn't add any spaces. But let's do that. Let's add some spaces, and so it becomes a bit more easier to read. So in order to do that, you have to add a space between two quotation signs. So like this, and then comma. So between every single cell, we add this quotation sign with the space in between. We could add whatever characters we wanted to within those quotation signs, and they would appear just as nicely as the space does right now. And it separated them out by a space. And of course, we can drag this all the way down, and we have all the numbers. If we wanted to, we could replace this space by a plus sign, or add a plus sign along with the spaces. And it will add a plus sign into the resulting cell. And there we have it, all the pluses in here. And we can again drag that all the way down and have pluses show up everywhere. And so this is how you separate text from one column into many columns, and combine text from many columns into one column. And both have their uses in different applications. I use these two things all the time. Very useful.